Good morning! Happy Friday! Good morning, friends. Hope you've got something warm to drink. I've got my mud water. Today is episode 12, which is a big number for me. If you've known me for any amount of time in real life, well, maybe not. I don't know. Most people don't know me. What am I even doing? 12 is my favorite number. It has been my favorite number for my entire life. I don't know why. I just think it's cool. It's different. It's unique. It's the only number that doesn't follow the typical naming conventions. That and 11. It's like they just decided to be called their own thing. You got a dozen, 12 apostles. Just a cool number. Apparently Leah didn't know that 12 was my favorite number until 4 days ago. So, maybe nobody knows that. But that means it's a big deal for me to finally get to this number. It is also the last day of Mental Health Awareness Month. May, if you didn't know, Mental Health Awareness Month. So I wanted to do an episode to kind of wrap up this month. My entire story thus far, the catalyst for the show, kind of like the defining event of my life thus far, has been the mental breakdown, as we call it, which was essentially just me snapping from the monotony of life, the experience of leaving my religion, just being in your 20s. Everybody, I think, could have a mental breakdown in their 20s. It's not a very stable and fun time of life. And I want to wrap up the sort of arc that we've been doing this week on purpose and finding your purpose, finding your identity, and tie in quite a few of the little loose threads that we have left. I'm excited. And after our discussion, because it is Friday, we'll wrap up with a little bit of a coffee chat. So if you have any questions or thoughts, stick around. And I also am going to do something special at the end here. I want to do something together to celebrate episode 12. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. I believe that we were born basically like a seed, right? There's this theory where the entire design for a tree is baked into the seed. And I believe in that a little bit. I believe that you were born a seed. We were born seeds with a direction to grow, a destiny, essentially, a trunk that's going to go in a direction. Good morning, Ashley. It's so good to see you. How are you doing? This is going to be your little pre-coffee chat. It's great to see you here. So we're trees, right? And we have this direction that we're supposed to grow in, which is typically up, like most trees. But society and life and religion, emotions, experiences, it puts all of these kind of things in the way, right? It's like adding fences, or I don't know if you've seen that picture of a tree that grew around a bike, but essentially you've got this stuff that's kind of impacting the path that your tree is going to grow in. And a lot of that is, in a way, kind of like domestication. For those that don't know, the definition of domestication, classic Mormon thing, starting off a talk with a definition: the process of taming an animal and keeping it as a pet or on a farm for profit. But that same thing can apply to people, right? So we kind of domesticate ourselves to fit into this fence, into this box, to fit the mold that we need to fill. And part of that comes at a cost. And that's kind of what triggers mental health problems a lot of the time. It's that self-suppression. The domestication that we put ourselves through is the suppression of ourselves in service of social, economic, religious, relational expectations. And we kind of think that that order and that performance is an indication of our health or our purpose, and that is making us sick, mentally, physically, spiritually, to equate that fitting into that mold, fitting into that box with health and success. You know what, actually, this doesn't feel like the right direction to go in for today. Episode 12 is going to be a little different than this. Scratch that. I feel like I want to talk about something. A couple months after my initial mental breakdown, I was feeling pretty hopeless, pretty alone, pretty just wanted to give up. You know, I felt like I saw this cycle of, is this what life really is? It's just kind of like wake up, struggle, go to work, pay the bills, go to sleep, repeat. And the nice thing about being Mormon was that I kind of believed that, yeah, sure, maybe this life sucks, but in the next life you get mansions and as many wives as you want. Not doctrinally, but obviously it's meant to be this place that's perfect, and all of the inequalities of our life will be righted. But in deconstructing and losing my religion, that went away, right? So it's like, okay, now YOLO. I don't really want to give my entire life to some corporation, some stockholder. Like, what even the hell is a stockholder? Why does it matter if they're happy? I don't know. And Leah did something really thoughtful, really kind. She made a post in this Facebook group called Random Acts of Cardness. She just said something like, hey, wanted to introduce my husband. He's going through a hard time, and if you could, write him a letter. And I got all these letters from just a bunch of random people all over the country. California, New York, Washington. I think there's even a Maine in here. And I haven't opened like half of them. On Wednesday, I mentioned that, I believe it was Wednesday, that I didn't call my grandma when I told her I would. And that I had been putting off a conversation with my aunt after she had texted me. And last night, we finally called. I talked to my aunt for an hour. And it was one of the best conversations that I've had in a long time. She started off by just saying she's been watching the first few episodes. She's trying to get caught up. She just said she's proud of me for looking at myself and being introspective and not being afraid to do it in front of people, even though it is terrifying. It's definitely the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. So real quick, if you're here, thank you for being here. if you are going through a hard time, if you are looking for your purpose, for more meaning in your life, more fulfillment, a reason to keep up the struggle and the fight, that's kind of why I'm making this space, this show. It's meant to be a place where we can have those kinds of conversations, where we can get deep, we can be vulnerable, and we can say the things that maybe we keep to ourselves most of the time, because we're afraid of being hurt. We want to kind of fit in that box. The social, religious, whatever, expectations. Here, everyone's welcome. And my aunt, her name is Rebecca. Just want to give you a little shout out. Thanks for talking to me. I love you a lot. And she did say she's going to come on the show sometime. She has a very interesting story, super inspiring, very difficult. So she wants some time to process things a little bit before she comes on. But I'm excited to see her, to have her come on and to introduce her story to anybody who wants to listen. So I've mentioned that I'm reading this book, No Bad Parts, by Richard C. Schwartz. He invented a therapy system or a therapy model called the internal family systems. This is the book. And essentially, it kind of affirms all of these things that I thought I was going crazy for. I think I mentioned I felt like at some point in my life, I felt like I was having a conversation between the left hemisphere of my brain and the right hemisphere of my brain. And I was calling the right hemisphere of my brain Nix, who was the main character of the book I started writing when I was younger. And it's the origin of why I love the number 12. In the book, Nix turns 12, discovers that he's not like everybody else. He's not like other girls. And he has superpowers, basically. I had this like whole fantasy world that was kind of based loosely around Journey to the Center of the Earth. I was fascinated with the idea that maybe there was like another layer and there could be a whole civilization down there. And I had this origin story where Leif Erikson, the Viking who discovered America, when he got to America, some of the people hid from a Native American tribe that was trying to like eradicate the Vikings. I don't know. And they went into a tunnel, into a cave, and then they ended up in the underground world. And Nix came from that. And part of that was just like as a kid imagining that there was something else. You know, I wanted to feel like special. But the right hemisphere of my brain had a conversation with it in a weird way, and I called it Nix, and I was like, I'm going insane. This is these are the signs of psychosis, multiple personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder is what it's called now. Like, I'm actually going crazy. I'm losing it. But No Bad Parts says I'm normal. And it might not be real. It's just a theory. It's one model of therapy. It's one model of the mind, of psychology. But in it, he talks about a concept called monomind. Monomind is the idea that there's just like it's just one brain, right? It's us. It's our thoughts are ours, nobody else's. It's I, seed of consciousness, the witness observer, all sorts of different words for it, right? But essentially it's your ego, and that there's only one person in there. Whereas internal family systems basically says that no, all of those thoughts. Have you ever had an inner dialogue with yourself where you're thinking, I should go to the gym right now, and then another part of you is like, no, but you're tired. No, but you have to do this other thing at work, or like, you know, you have these conflicting emotions or dialogues going on inside of you at the same time, which would indicate that maybe some of those thoughts are coming from a different part of us. And he refers to the different identities or entities or characters in our minds as parts. So maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe I was having a conversation with a deeper part of myself that I don't listen to very often. And in order to make sense of that, I named it Nyx. And in my search for meaning, as I've been rebuilding post-mental breakdown, one of the things actually I talked about with my aunt last night is that we spend our lives building this fragile tower, kind of like Lincoln logs in a sense, but they're not put together correctly. We just kind of haphazardly stack these sticks and logs into a tower that we call ourselves, right? And a lot of it comes from roles that we're playing in the lives of other people, in their stories. Story has become an essential part of my spirituality, my meaning making in life. And I think everybody is living a story. POV, you're the main character. Everybody's the main character. Some of us play the role of an accountant in the story of Jeff Bezos, right? He has his own story. We all have a story, and we're all playing a role in someone else's story and in our own. And we build ourselves, we build this identity, we build these relationships, sometimes inauthentically. For example, when Leah and I were dating, I told her, or she told me, I don't want to date or marry anybody who plays video games. And I said, yeah, cool. I can do that. I don't even really like video games that much. And that was definitely a denial of self. I have always found video games absolutely fascinating. I think it's such a cool form of entertainment, of media. The fact that you can tell a story but also be an active participant. I always loved those choose your own adventure books because I didn't like the dumb things that people did in their books. Like, it's a simple mistake. Just make a slightly different choice and everything works out better in the end. So rather than just kind of like watching a movie, I thought playing a video game is cool because you get to influence the story, be an active participant rather than just along for the ride. And I've had a lot of experiences growing up since I was a child that video games have just kind of been a part of like my human experience. And because of Leah's not necessarily ultimatum, but it seemed she was pretty passionate and pretty dead set on like, I don't want to be with somebody who likes video games. And I could tell that Leah was the person I needed to be with. She was the yin to my yang, as I like to say. She just balances me out. And where all of my weaknesses are, she has a strength, and where all of my strengths are, she also has strengths because she's perfect. But that denial of self, that commitment to behave in a way that wasn't maybe natural or authentic, was something I was afraid to change, right? And we do this all the time in such small, potentially, we might say meaningless ways, but it adds up. And we end up at some point looking at ourselves and realizing like, holy cow, I'm playing a character that does not feel like me. When I am around people, I feel this need to put on a mask, put on a face, put on an act, and be this person who people expect me to be. And I think we all do this to some extent, especially if you're neurodivergent or experiencing some sort of mental health conundrum. It's called masking. We all do it. And when we build our lives and we build our identity and we build our relationships around this character that we've been playing, it is so hard to make changes because we are afraid that if we move one little aspect of this pile of sticks that is our character and our identity, that the whole thing will come crumbling down. Which is why, in a way, I'm actually really grateful for my mental breakdown. I keep doing air quotes. I don't know why. I'm not trying to dismiss it. Like, it was a legit mental breakdown. I think it just sounds dramatic, and so I don't want to be a dramatic person, but it was a dramatic experience. It was an insane event to basically lose everything. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It was like there was nothing tying me to this life anymore. I was at a point in my depression where I literally did not care if I was hit by a bus. Like, it would have saved me some trouble. And so in that space of like everything falling apart around me, my whole life crumbling, my whole character crumbling, there was no more fear. Like, to move some sticks around, to become the person that was authentic to me, to grow into the tree that my seed was meant to be. And it was almost like I got a second chance. And I think we all have experiences in our life where we feel like maybe things are crumbling around us, our lives are falling apart. And those are experiences that we often try to avoid, that we're afraid of. But I think it's an opportunity for us to rebuild our pile of sticks in a slightly more authentic way. It's unlikely that we're going to build it perfectly. We have habits, we have these things that are ingrained into us. And when I experienced this mental breakdown, it really was the direction I kind of wanted to go for today, and the reason why I was talking about like the tree growing and stuff getting in the way and domestication and all that stuff is essentially just this denial of self that we all do in some way or another, to some degree, to some form, masking. And we say yes to the things that we wish we said no to, and sometimes we say no to things that we probably should have said yes to, but we were afraid to. I've said no to myself constantly because I'm afraid of people seeing a part of me that isn't polished, that isn't ready for viewing. I've wanted to start this show for over a year now, and I'm just getting started, and it still is not even close to perfect, and that's what makes it so scary. But I think that's also what makes it valuable and meaningful and real, is that this is a space for us to explore and rebuild ourselves and have those conversations. And in order to model that and show that it's a safe place, I feel like it would be inauthentic for me to just wait until I was ready or perfect to start. Because rebuilding is messy. Trying to become your authentic self is not a beautiful, pretty looking thing, you know. And I feel like there's a few primary systems in our lives that influence how we build ourselves. In a way, maybe you could consider it systems that domesticate you or encourage you to grow in a way that isn't natural. And I'm not saying that natural is best, but it's maybe more authentic. The first system, the one that I think we're all the most familiar with, because I'm sure most of these viewers here are Americans, capitalism, where our value is determined by our output, our ability to be profitable. And capitalism, it rewards the hustle, it rewards the performance, it even rewards burnout. You have corporate lingo, you have the corporate ladder, corporate politics, all this stuff that plays into how can I position myself advantageously to profit, and in a way kind of like get more out than I put in. I think is sort of the ultimate goal of capitalism. And it's a rat race. We all know it. And it doesn't fulfill you. You get the job, you become the CEO, you start your business, you become a millionaire, and it doesn't fulfill you. It, in a sense, it might make it you feel that you have more freedom to build yourself the way you want to, and there's certainly benefits to being good at capitalism and being successful at it. But it's the fact that it's kind of the only option in America is to play this game that I think is contributing to the mental health pandemic that we have in America. In addition to loneliness, the lack of vulnerability that we have, we're not having conversations with strangers, and even with our friends, a lot of it is still somewhat surface level. Talking more so about the experiences that we've had and less about how those experiences are shaping us, affecting us, making us feel. The other system that I felt domesticated me was religion. And I don't think religion is bad. I don't mean to say, like, it's so hard to have these conversations where I'm critiquing and deconstructing the parts of religion that hurt me. And actually, this is a great segue into one of the core concepts of No Bad Parts, is that everybody, every system, every person, every thing has parts, and it's okay to say that, like, some parts helped me and some parts hurt me. But one of the core concepts of No Bad Parts is that this inherent goodness, there's no part of ourselves that is actually bad. It's potentially misguided. We're just trying to protect ourselves. It's like the villain in a story that you actually are like, wait, maybe they're doing something worthwhile, and while their means might not be correct, it's almost like the ends justify the means. Like robbing a pharmacy so that you can get meds for your ill mother or child or whatever, right? Like, it's this morally gray area. That's sort of like No Bad Parts. Everything that our internal parts do is ultimately motivated by protecting and keeping the system or the person safe in a state of homeostasis, something that is normal, essentially, a state of normal. And it might not be healthy, it might not be happy, but it's normal. It can continue because it's something we're used to. And religion is the same way. There's some parts that have hurt me and some parts that have been really good for me. But especially in the parts where obedience, guilt, shame, kind of all of the Mormonism is kind of, or Christianity is kind of fundamentally organized around this concept of the fall, that the natural man is flawed, and we come from Adam and Eve, who committed the original sin. So there's sort of this inherent belief that who we are naturally is not good and we need to change that. And some people internalize that to different degrees, and some people don't even feel that way at all because of religion. Everyone has their own experiences, and many people feel completely saved and accepted and loved by God. But that wasn't my experience, because of the sort of expectations specific to Mormonism and my experience of Mormonism, and within my family maybe. But it promises rewards for, if you be this way during your life, you'll get this in the next life. So if you just kind of like deny all of your natural urges, deny yourself these certain things that you want, you'll be rewarded with something that is more valuable in the next life. And that is something that I think is a good part of religion. It is important that we aren't just consistently following our carnal instincts and doing whatever the heck we want. There is more value to eating broccoli than sugar. There are certain things that our bodies want or crave that aren't necessarily healthy for us. And religion is a good tool for teaching us those things. The other part the other system, I guess, that I think domesticates us, education and media, especially the current school system. I think one of the advantages of my life, or the pros of the experiences that I had on the farm being pulled out of school, I've seen both worlds, right? Like I went through steps preschool to 5th grade, somewhat traditionally. I experienced that, and it's very structured. It's just like you literally go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 12, and then you go to college. It's laid out for you. The path is there. You just have to follow it. Being homeschooled on the farm, I think, allowed me to question that life path that's determined for us and recognize that maybe that's not the only way to do things. When Leah and I, was it 2 years ago now, we went to visit one of my best friends, Kenneth, in Hawaii. He was stationed there. He's in the Air Force. And while we were there, I met this kid who was working at a zipline place. We did a zipline tour in Hawaii. And he said that he was homeschooled and he started a business when he was like 17 or 16, selling, I think it was like t-shirts or something. It was something kind of basic, but more than what I was doing. And he had some success with it, and then he had the ability to go to Hawaii and basically do whatever he wanted to do. And I think for a lot of my life, I saw my homeschooling experience as a curse, almost as like something I missed out on, because I didn't get to play basketball, or I didn't get to have all of the experiences of extracurricular activities that I might have had. And I kind of probably would have benefited from a more structured learning environment. Anyways, whoa. Remember, I have ADHD, so. But education, these systems, they domesticate us, our jobs, everything. It tells us to play a role, to be a character, and we're afraid to rebuild it because we don't want the whole tower to come crumbling down. But certain things happen in our life that are outside of our control, and it just comes over and it just bulldozes your tower. Everything gone. Probably shouldn't make that noise into the microphone. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. And it's moments like that where we feel that our life has fallen apart, when we have the freedom to rebuild ourselves. It wasn't until my mental breakdown that I had the clarity and maybe the lack of fear, like I did not care what happened, that I was finally able to start to recognize these parts of myself that I had suppressed for so long. And the first time that I had this experience of feeling like the left hemisphere of my brain was talking to the right hemisphere of my brain, that this thing I call me, Braden, was having a conversation with what I called Nix, who was basically like this other entity almost in my brain. Another, like a conversation. And you might be thinking, holy shit, this guy's crazy. He's hearing voices in his head. But don't we all? Like, isn't that kind of how we think? Something I think is kind of funny about the concept of like prayer or hearing the Holy Ghost or whatever, the Spirit say something to you, is kind of like, I heard a still small voice, and it's like, isn't that just, don't we all hear voices in our head when we think? Isn't that constantly happening? And don't some of those voices seem like they might not be from us? Anyways, we'll call this moment first contact. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I feel like I kind of have this wall put up where when I'm in an experience or in a situation, I don't fully feel that experience. I'm not really present or there for whatever's in front of me. I've described this as, I might go outside and I'll look at a tree, and rather than just like take in that specific tree, my interpretation of the experience is the narrative, my internal dialogue narrating and saying, you are looking at a tree, essentially, and it is a big tree, and it might be an oak tree or a maple tree or something. I'm not that good at recognizing trees. But there's this barrier of words where I put my interpretation of experiences before I feel them, and so I don't get like the raw experience of life very often. I remember when I was a kid, I felt that way all the time, like just this immense sense of presence and like wonder about the world around me. But I think as we go through experiences, we start to put up these walls, and we realize that if we put up enough space and we learn how to filter our experiences through this interpretation and vocalization or narrative, then we can make our experiences mean whatever we want them to mean. And when I had first contact with Nix, it was weird because it was like it was the first time that I went from caring, kind of living in this liminal space of interpretation. It was the first time that I turned fully inward and was like 100% present with the sensations in my body and my thoughts, and I kind of gave my brain, or like Nix, or I don't know, whatever, my emotions, my body, my feelings, whatever you want to call it, I gave it like permission to talk. And there was this moment where it felt like I kind of handed the microphone over to this other voice in my head. And I was like, all right, what do you have to say? And it was crazy because it was like my body, I felt it shift. There was this, like, my shoulders sat back a little bit. I like kind of cracked my neck and stretched, and I was like, oh, it's good to be back. Like, is this thought that I had, this feeling. And this was the first experience that I had with parts, as mentioned here. But I didn't know what to call it. It was kind of just like, oh shoot, I am crazy. This is my biggest fear. But I was like, we'll just go with it. Whatever, it's happening. Nothing I can do. Maybe I do have multiple personality disorder and I am crazy. Leah's gonna leave me. But let's just enjoy this moment, this experience. And when I was I don't want to say like I became Nix, because that's not really what it was. Like there was still this like this me, Braden, a person, and perspective and way of interpreting the world. That was still in here, but it was like player 2 on a controller. Like if you're playing a game with your younger brother or whatever, and you're playing on controller 1 and he's playing on controller 2, it was like we swapped controllers for a second. I was still like a participant, but I wasn't player 1 anymore. It was this other version of my personality, this other part of my psyche became player 1 for a moment. And I can't like shift in any moment. Like I don't think I could tap in to Nyx right now. Maybe I could, maybe that's just a limiting belief, but when I did, there, like I said, there was this moment of like, oh, finally, it is so good to like be able to exist again. And I felt emotions and sensations, and I have a deviated septum. My sense of smell is pretty bad. And it was like my nose opened up and I could smell the candle that was burning in the kitchen, and my awareness of like the sounds around me, just it went from hearing the AC, like that hum of the AC, to I could hear the birds outside and the police sirens and a dog barking, and like it was crazy. It was like it was like my normal state, the way I am right now, was like the third person view, removed, wall of words, nothing can hurt me kind of feeling. And it was like I sank in to my body for the first time and was like just fully aware and present. And that was the first time I felt like I am not even remotely close to the person I'm supposed to be. When I quit my job at the law firm, I told my boss, I said, I feel like if I don't quit now, if I don't leave now, I'm going to miss something. And it was all prompted by this sense that in the last couple of episodes we've talked about world lines, essentially timelines, and like I've been talking about the tree, that I think we have a trunk that is our core and it's going to grow in a certain direction, but we're not limited to being one-dimensional because we have branches. We go out in many directions and we have almost infinite directions we can go, but obviously we come from a trunk. And this concept of domestication, putting things in front of the tree to make it grow in different ways, because trees obviously grow around the things, they're going to continue to grow no matter what limitations you put on them. And it was this sense that, holy cow, I am not in the place I'm supposed to be. I'm not the person I'm supposed to be. I am building things, like I've built my life around expectations from everybody else. And the reason why I was struggling so hard with burnout and depression and anxiety was because nothing I was doing was natural to me. It was like every day I woke up and I put on a mask and I just played a character. In every relationship that I had, even my relationship with my wife, with Leah, I was just showing up as a character who she expected me to be. And when I had that moment of first contact with Nyx, it was like a lightning bolt was like, dude, you're not you. And I think I realized like that is the core problem of my mental health. when I was in university, I took a Psych 101 class, and there was a part of the semester where we talked about the source of anxiety, and it was kind of this concept of playing roles or living up to expectations, that there's this circle of like our true self, and then people place expectations upon us, and organizations and groups, and the more misaligned that these expectations are. So like we might think that we're this, and then our parents think we should be this, and our church thinks we should be this, and our job thinks we should be this, and the more misaligned that they are, the less overlap. Think of like a Venn diagram, I think is what it's called, with the 3 circles. The more overlap there is with the circles, the less anxiety we have, and the more misalignment there is, the more anxiety we have. So I think that concept, or that exposure to that concept, was sort of the seed that was planted that helped me to realize that, oh, if I'm playing a different character in every moment of my life, then I'm definitely not going to be feeling great. I'm for sure going to have anxiety. No wonder I'm depressed. No wonder I'm burnt out. But then it was like, okay, now what do I do? Like, how do I change that? So that's why I quit my job. Tried to start a business. Ended up just doing basically the same thing I was doing, but for other people, a variety of people, as a freelancer, which gives me the freedom to have time to do something like this, like make a show, have personal endeavors, start a business, create a hair product, which is still coming, by the way. I know I teased that like a long time ago. I am still working on the hair product, Maintain. I've been doing like a lot of market research, trying to look at other products. It's coming. But the point is, don't wait for permission or a mental breakdown or a life-shattering moment to begin shifting things, to begin rebuilding. Because it's a lot harder if you don't make that space for yourself. This is kind of like, if I could sum it all up in one sentence, phrase, the main thing I wanted to get to in today's episode is, the body says no when we're not allowed to. So if you're always saying yes to things when you're like, I wish I could say no, or you're in a situation that you feel you didn't choose, you're being forced to behave or act in a certain way, that's going to compound. I think his name is pronounced Gabor Mate. I don't remember exactly how he says his name, but he's like the body keeps the score. His kind of belief is that like disease and mental health is a reflection of inner conflict and like trauma, all that good stuff. So there's absolutely evidence that supports this, that when we are not allowed to be our authentic selves, we get inflamed, there's chronic stress, we have a higher chance of autoimmune issues, heart disease, all of the bad stuff, everything that we're trying to avoid. When the body says no, the body says no when we're not allowed to. When we're not allowed to say no, the body says no. And it's not a fun experience, I promise. All right, I think I monologued on for way too long. Mental health, check in with yourself. Acknowledge the fact that there are many parts of yourself. And who is holding the player one controller? Is it this character that you've been told you need to play? This part of yourself that has taken on the responsibility of just kind of showing up, doing what needs to be done, being the adult, living life. This is how life is. It's just how it is. Grow up. Deal with it. There's a part of you that is responsible for controlling that. But I know inside of you, might be really deep down, or it might be like just under the surface. There's a part of you that is just craving to have a chance to hold that player one controller and to say, what if we made a different decision today? So try an experiment. You have many days to come, likely. So maybe one of those days you could try letting someone else, a different part of yourself, have that player one controller. Try some new habits. Investigate that thing you're curious about. Create something. Give yourself permission to, what if I was a little kid right now? What would I want to do? Try it. Highly encourage it. Now, let's segue into our little coffee chat. And as I mentioned, I wanted to do something special. So I have this, the archetypes book and cards here. And anybody here right now, if you have a question or you want to know, like, what part of me am I suppressing? What am I naturally curious in? What do I need to remove from my life? Anything like that. We're just going to have some fun with it. I mean, I don't know if this is real or of the devil or whatever, but what I do know is that every time Leah and I have used these cards to kind of like try and do some self-exploration, crazy shiz happens. Like, it just all makes sense. It's really a wild synchronicity that works. And for those that don't know, the core of archetypes, like what exactly is it? It's essentially just like sort of the building blocks of meaning is how I like to think about it. There's these concepts that are so core to the human experience that they it's kind of like the prime numbers of experiences. So if you have a question, let me know, and I would love to draw a card for you and tell you, we can talk about the interpretation of that card, what that might mean, how it could apply to your situation. And for an example, I've been wanting to ask, what is something that I need to remove from my life? So I'm going to draw a card for myself. And like I said, if you have any questions, anything you want to know about yourself, anything you want to look inside, and even if you don't, it might not even be like an actual answer, but it's just kind of designed to be a thought experiment, right? I'm going to go with this card. I have no idea what it is. So this is the seed. I've drawn this card before. It was actually, there's this, you can do a card spread. Leah and I did one on Sunday for her. That was really cool. And we did one for me on Saturday, last Saturday, that was really cool. And I drew the seed during that card spread. It's interesting that I drew it now. I'll tell you what the seed actually represents. Page 197. The seed. The beginning, the origin, the pearl. Beginnings come in many forms. They are not always a beautiful seed placed intentionally in nourishing soil. Origin stories, like any birth story, are complex, surprising, multi-layered, and usually reveal a central image or detail that represents the fully formed being. Simply stated, the end is present in the beginning, or the entire oak tree resides within the acorn. Whether you follow this imaginal theory or not, know that when this card appears, there is potent generative energy all around. It stirs your very insides, and usually results in an antsy, impatient feeling. Pay particular attention to what agitates you, as it is a sure sign of growth to come. You are bumping up against a growth edge. It is from the grit that the pearl eventually comes to be. Bailey, you don't necessarily need a question. It's sort of just like an intention. You can also just say, like, if you just want me to do a general card draw, I can say, like, I'm thinking about Bailey. What card does she need to hear? And I can draw one for you if you'd like in that way. And then it also has this thing, when light, when dark, and some direction if you want to do more research. When light means it should feel generative, fertile, germinating, building, and when dark, festering, stewing, and dormant. So it's interesting to me that I just drew this card because, like I said, I drew it earlier, and in the context of when I drew it earlier, it was like something I needed to nourish or nurture was the seed. And just now I asked, what's something I need to remove from my life? And I think it's maybe that if I think about the dark side of the seed, festering, stewing, dormant, I overthink things a lot. I avoid and escape things when I feel uncomfortable or anxious. And that festering and that stewing, I definitely know I've been experiencing that. So maybe I just need to try and embrace the journey of the seed. That when I'm starting something new, just kind of trust that process. So, Bailey's question. She said, let's do a general, or I have a lot of changes, so how to stay grounded in this time? Yeah, because you did just move. Okay, that's a good one. I like that. Maybe we'll do a general one. Like, what's just in general do you need to focus on? And I'll just draw a second card of, during this specific time, how can you stay grounded amongst all this change? You know what? I'm just going to do the top card. I should probably shuffle these in front of you guys. I'm going to do a little bit more of this because I don't want you to think I'm like just picking a card so that I can control your destiny or influence your thoughts. We'll just do this top card. This is the Mother. This is our general card. And now we'll do this one. What do you need to stay grounded? How to stay grounded in this time. This card is pretty crazy. The Destroyer. All right, let's see what the Mother is all about. The Mother is the first card in the entire deck. They all have a Roman numeral. They're numbered. Okay, this is your general reading, Bailey. The Mother. The Great Mother, the feminine, the source. We begin our archetypal story with the mother's love. Through her sensual, fertile, and life-giving energy, all creation takes form. Regardless of our birth story, each of our hearts beat for the first time in the warm wombs of the mother, where she offered resources from her body for the building of our own. Yet her tale is not so simple, as the mother, especially on the earthly plane, contains both light and dark aspects of the feminine. With the best of intentions, the mother wraps her loving arms around her creations and begins to grip what she meant to set free. The mother both nurtures and prohibits growth. She gives yet clings. She creates yet restricts. Amid this complex energy, the mother holds the key to the eternal challenge of love. When light, glowing, generative, creative, nurturing. When dark, dim, exhausted, controlling, limiting. To go deeper, read Tao Te Ching, Chapter 1, and Imagine the Mother of 10,000 Things. Notice how the mother archetype is expressed in nature. This is perhaps the most balanced and benevolent form of the mother's grace. The mother is part of the trifecta, maiden, mother, crone. Because of the relationship between them, take special note when these cards appear in one reading. Okay. Interesting. I think that the line that stands out to me the most in this description of the card, and this is sort of a, like I said, the archetype, it's like this core seed nugget of meaning. If you think of like, what's a synonym for mother? Like the concept of mother is such a core concept to the human experience. And so there's many interpretations and directions this can go in, and this is just sort of like a starting point. But what stands out to me is, with the best of intentions, the mother wraps her loving arms around her creations and begins to grip what she meant to set free. The mother both nurtures and prohibits growth. She gives, yet clings, and creates, yet restricts. Amid this complex energy, the mother holds the key to the eternal challenge of love. I think that's an interesting thing it's an interesting card. Don't know if that resonates with you in any way. But if it does, cool. If it doesn't, it's just a card. All right, the Destroyer. This is your, like, what do you need to stay grounded right now? Where is the Destroyer? 107, page 107. All right. You're also supposed to like look at the card and see what it kind of means. So I don't think I showed the mother card very well, but I'm going to hold it up for a second. So the mother, it's looks like a nest with a snake or like a rope and some hands holding a pearl with some colors around the outside. The Destroyer. Here's the Destroyer. So, what do you need to stay grounded right now? The Destroyer. The savage, the unexpected, the rejected. The Destroyer, the final of the three archetypes in the trio of existence, has necessary yet painful work to do in the world. Culturally, we have an aversion to endings, and we hang on to permanence as a signifier of success. Yet the Destroyer pulls the rug out from underneath relationships, jobs, homes, and all forms of security. It's the part of us that wants to end things. Its painful orientation is to uncover our true purpose. The Destroyer does not let us linger long in comforts, as it knows not much happens in that realm. With its piercing eyes, it seeks out stagnancy from a distance, and the rest becomes history. In the old myths, this is the moment when heads begin to roll, the ground opens up, and castles crumble. Hold on for the ride, the Destroyer has arrived. When light, swift and precise blows that redirect our life. When dark, self-destruction, negativity, unwillingness to rebuild. Consider Picasso's statement, every act of creation is first of all an act of destruction. In old tales, the Destroyer sometimes appears as a black dog. Other times it takes the form of gods and goddesses such as Shiva, Kali, and Apophis. I think that's how you say his name. If you want to go deeper, Robert Rauschenberg's Erased de Kooning drawing. This, I actually know what that piece of art is. Robert Rauschenberg, there's an artist, his last name was Kooning, I think. He was a famous artist. He was also a professor at a university, and Robert Rauschenberg was a student of Kooning, and he asked Kooning for a drawing of his that he could erase. And so it's a piece of paper that previously had a drawing on it by Kooning, and Robert Rauschenberg erased said drawing, and then he took that piece of paper and he uses that as his own piece of art now. So art can also be destruction. I find this one pretty interesting and pretty on the nose for what you're going through in this moment, because you just moved and you're basically rebuilding your entire life. When dark, self-destruction, negativity, unwillingness to rebuild. When light, swift and precise blows that redirect our life. So I think maybe just one way that you could stay grounded in this moment is just recognizing that the destroyer is not necessarily a bad thing. That every time something falls apart, that's when you have the place to rebuild. It's exactly what we were talking about in today's episode. This idea that we build this fragile tower of ourself and our life, and we're afraid to rebuild it. But the destroyer is what makes space for that rebuilding. With the motherly one, you said, oh, that's interesting because I've never thought of myself as motherly in the traditional sense, but yeah, the duality is a thought. Wonder why you've never thought of yourself as motherly. I think you do a fantastic job with, what is your dog's name? I can't remember. I'm so sorry. I think you're a fantastic mother to your little doggy. And then your response to the destroyer, Hugo. There you go. That one resonates more because I tend to stay on the go and changing and challenging myself with new things / ending things when I get comfortable. I like that vibe. Not what I expected, but accurate. It's cool. I'm glad that you like that one. All right, Ashley, you're up. General one for Ashley. What does Ashley need to know? Oh, cards of destiny and archetypes and spirituality and the devil, whatever. I don't know. Friggin', I probably would get excommunicated if the prophet knew I was using cards to learn stuff about myself. Okay. Ashley Jackson. What does she need to know right now? In general, I think she needs to know this. The Castle. Wow, I haven't seen this card before. The Castle. So it looks almost, you've got this like green border with a square border of what looks like pearls, an eyeball, and or like an eye lid that's closed with makeup on, and a rose, a little pink rose. It's a pretty card. I like the colors of that. It's one of the all of the cards in this archetypes deck are beautiful. Alrighty, let's see. The Castle, page 149. Here we go. The palace, the penthouse, the fortress. It's no wonder fairy tales tell of sleeping princesses within castle walls. Like most archetypes, the castle is loaded with duality. It represents abundant riches, seductive fantasy, ornate wonders, and lavish adornments, yet the walls are thick, cold, and shadowy. This card points to a tendency to hold on to possessions, quite possibly a literal home, or position that projects the image of achievement. While the soul longs to run barefoot in the forest, leaving it all behind, at times we must settle down, yet the castle lulls us with its spell of materialism and we fall asleep to our deepest dreams. The castle can be a motivating force, an enchanting goal to travel toward, but it is best not to linger within its walls of decadent deception for too long. When light, visiting your throne of power, when dark, stuckness, depression, spells, walls. Go deeper. Rachel Whiteread's House and Peter Bruegel's The Tower of Babel. Notice how castles are designed to keep things out. They defend, they separate. It is likely there is connection and community beyond its walls that will revitalize you. If this card appears with the king, the queen, or the maiden, know that you've entered into long-standing family dynamics that include property and power. Well, we didn't draw 2 cards, so it didn't appear with either of those. Interesting. I mean, the general concept of a castle, like a stronghold, the place where the royalty and the king lives. I feel like there's a lot of potential interpretations there. I hope that means something to you. I don't know. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Take some time. Do some self-discovery. Find your inner Nix. Have a conversation. Just be like, yo, what's up? Haven't checked in a minute. Is there even anybody in here? Hello? Anyone home? And you might just find that you also have multiple personality disorder. Welcome to the club. I think that's all for today, guys. Choose structure that supports your unique shape. I wanted to make sure I did have one thing I wanted to do. So I took a bunch of notes before this and I wrote down what I wanted my coffee chat prompt to be. I said, what have you been trained to believe about yourself that might not be true? And if I were growing freely, what shape would I take? I like that second question a little more right now. I feel like that's resonating with me because of that tree analogy. I like to think about it like, imagine you're growing up and your parents want you to be a doctor or a lawyer. And so that's like building something right over your tree that's pushing you in a direction that is going to impact your life in a really big way. Choosing what you do for your career, what you learn about in your education, all big things. And really at your core, you just want to do pottery. You want to get on a wheel and you want to spin and make pots. If I were growing freely, what shape would I take? That first question, actually, what have you been trained to believe about yourself that might not be true? That's an introspective question. I'm gonna have to go to the cards. What is something that I believe about myself that isn't true? All right, this one. Whoa, okay. This card is kind of, I have not seen this one before. Good morning, Myra. No worries, no need to apologize. Anima Mundi. I have no idea what this is. That is a crazy looking card. Let's figure out what it is. Good morning, Myra. If you have a question or something you want to know about yourself, I know you just moved to Utah, so maybe I'll do a card draw for you based off of just what I know about you, your experience right now. Anima Mundi, the initiations. This is apparently the last card in the deck. Page 223. Convenient. Anima Mundi, the soul of the world, all that is. Anima Mundi epitomizes the principle, accept all, reject none. Simply put, it is the living soul of the world in all its multifaceted, multidimensional layers, bonded together by loving cosmic forces. Diversity is celebrated, multiplicity is honored, and nothing is denied embrace. Constructs of separation dissipate into the wonderful mess of shared consciousness. Anima Mundi is the link between the literal and the imaginal, the rational and the mythic. It is the connective fiber that makes life meaningful. This card indicates an initiation on the level of the soul. You will awaken the unique light within and witness how this light contributes to the radiance of the entire universe. You will sense yourself as a critical note in the cosmic orchestra. Destiny is altered as you hear the enchanted melody of all living things. When light, tending to the sacred details of life. When dark, overwhelmed by the bigness of existence. Wow. Okay, wait. That line right there. Overwhelmed by the bigness of existence when dark. What do I believe about myself that might not be true? I do think I kind of believe I can't handle the bigness of existence. The embrace of Anima Mundi is available anytime, anywhere, to anyone, day or night, rich or poor. It is a process of unveiling our resistance to its love. Anima Mundi is the energy behind the World card in the Tarot deck. Both carry themes of universal unity, completeness, and embrace. Interesting. I'm gonna have to read that one again later. Do some more introspection on that. All right, Myra, do you want me to do a card draw for you? Because I don't think I'm allowed to do it against your will. I think that's bad. And if you do want me to do a card draw for you, do you have a specific question or thought or intention that you want to focus on? She says, let's do it. I'm not sure. Okay, well, what does Myra need to know or keep in mind during this phase of life? What I know about Myra's situation is that she just graduated. She just moved. She was living on the farm with my parents again for a little while, helping out. I think to an extent, Myra feels like she is responsible and needs to help. But she's doing what I did a little bit and just finally saying, you know what, I'm going to go live my own life. And so she moved out west. Not sure where she is at the moment. But here we go. In this stage of life, what does Myra need to know? The Offering. I like this card. It's a good card. It's a pretty card. The Offering. So you've got this sort of like watercolor rainbow border with a black part in the middle and a hand reaching out. A cupped hand. Palm facing up. The Offering. Am I blind? There it is. Page 193. I need to learn how to read the Roman numerals. I feel like that'd be helpful. I know generally how to read them, but it's when it gets to this level, like LXIV. Okay. The Offering. The gift, the present, the sacrifice. Unlike many of the other cards in the deck, the offering carries a clear as day message and a call to action. As you may have guessed, it is time for something to be given and given up for the sake of the bigger picture. If nothing comes to mind immediately, though it's likely it will, take time and meditation to consider what must be offered and who is to receive it. It's likely you'll feel attachment and hesitancy. You'll make excuses, but recognize the link between the word sacrifice and the word sacred. One leads to the other. When we offer up something to the greater good, we lighten our load and become more able to serve. Imagine for a moment if you were to offer your whole self unconditionally to the world. For now, start small. When light, generosity, donation, volunteering. When dark, giving with expectations, keeping track. Go deeper, Odin's sacrifice of his eye in Norse mythology. Once a week, Gandhi gave up speaking for a day, offering himself to divine silence. The offering can come in all shapes and sizes. If there is a gift you've been thinking of giving someone special, now is the time. I feel like that could have so many meanings, you know. It could be on like in a literal sense. There might be something that you need to like remove from your life, sacrifice, part ways with, something that you might feel like overly attached to. But like it says, if nothing comes to mind immediately, though it's likely it will, take time and meditation to consider what must be offered and who is to receive it. If that offering is to yourself or someone else. Hopefully that means something to you. I feel like it's easier for me to see the connection when I do these for like Leah or for me or for somebody that I'm like in person with or like having a conversation with. Myra, do you mind if I do a card draw for you? I kind of want to ask, what is something that, like a part of yourself that you're suppressing? Because I feel like you have so much to offer the world and you're still just trying to figure out who you are. And I want to unleash all the goodness that you have to offer. She says, sure. All right. What is something that Myra is suppressing? This is the card. Ooh, the sword. So this card, one half is this like pinkish yellow watercolor gradient. The other half is black, monochromatic, and it's separated by a sword, a black sword right down the middle. Leah just drew this card the other day. The sword, 189. Something that she is suppressing. The sword, the knife, the blade, the weapon. To use the sword is to decide. The blade separates one reality from another. The choice is made and all else falls away. If you find the sword in your grasp, you can no longer hesitate. This weapon requires a clear and decisive mind and a willingness to act. An onlooker may think the sword bearer is hasty and violent, but the most compassionate and responsible gesture is one that is honest, swift, and accurate. Our first encounter with the sword is at birth, when the cord we share with the mother is cut. This moment defines our separation from her and begins our journey of becoming ourself. We must make these cuts again and again if we are to grow. Decisions shape our life, and the sword is an infamous shaper of destiny. When light, cutting through to what is essential. When dark, hasty, backstabbing, a dull and painful blade. Go Deeper, Marina Abramovic's Rhythm Series, Caravaggio's Judith beheading Holofernes. Contemplate the Buddhist philosophy of the first and second arrow. Swing the sword once with precision and commitment. More than that will be painful for everyone involved. What could that mean? Boundary making, prioritizing, and clarifying are all gestures made possible by the sword. The sword is a metaphor for the pen and the brush, the artist's fierce and graceful tools. Interesting. Decisions shape our life, and the sword is an infamous shaper of destiny.
Earlier this year in a small New York City bar.
Curious how you interpreted that one, Myra. If you felt like that resonated with you. I feel like you've got a lot of decisions that you're making right now in your life, and I think when it comes to decisions that feel final, or maybe they are final, sometimes they should be final. I mean, that's kind of what it says. It's basically like, do it once and stick to it. Make your decision. Wait, where did the sword go? LXII, is that 12? 150, 72? Is that 72? LXII. I think that is 72. The sword bearer, an onlooker may think the sword bearer is hasty and violent, but the most compassionate and responsible gesture is one that is honest, swift, and accurate. Mara says, yeah, I'm having to make decisions on relationships, my career, and where I want to live. I need to be decisive. I don't know if, because of the way I structured that question of like what's something you're suppressing, I wonder if it's maybe not necessarily a call to become decisive, but to allow yourself to make the decisions that you know you need to make. Obviously, interpret the card however you will. You have a better perspective than I will. But I mean, considering the framing of the question and some of the details of the card, I think maybe it's saying, even in combination with the offering, it's kind of like it feels like maybe you do know the answers to some of your questions, but you're afraid to make it and like actually take the action of using the sword because it feels so permanent and painful. But take this as a permission slip to follow your heart, make the decisions that you feel you need to make, and recognize that one swift blow is kind and compassionate. And sometimes what is required is for us to cut things off, to cut things out. I'm excited for you. I really hope that you're able to find your group and your people and your path and this new step you've taken in your life to move out and go be on your own. Alrighty, I think that I've been going on for far too long today. An hour and 36 minutes. Longest episode thus far. Like I said, episode 12, really meaningful to me. This is a big benchmark in my journey. At least I'm choosing to see it that way. Normally I would have given up by now. But I'm gonna keep going. Unfortunately, you're not gonna get rid of me that easily. I will see you all on Monday, 7 a.m. Central Time. Love you. Bye.